All right, so we are joined for our final guest of the 2024-2025 school year, all the way from beautiful Boca Raton, Florida, by Rebecca Florexil. Uh, IAM database administrator. We will let her tell us all about that. We thank you so much for joining us. I got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School. This is our computer science engineering class, and we're recording this for all of our computer science engineering and ICT students in Madison County schools, including my good friend Angela Jordan over there at Shirley Simmons and my friends Jatoria Kirksey and Angela Reed over at Old Town Middle School and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining us from beautiful South Florida.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited.
Now, obviously, we want to talk about IAM because it is something new and a very high-tech, in-demand career that is going to absolutely skyrocket with career opportunities in the next few years. But just give us a little background because you're originally from South Florida, and after high school, you went to community college before you moved to the four-year university. So just tell us about that because we have some great community colleges here in Mississippi, and really want people to consider that.
Of course. Yeah. So after I graduated high school, I did pretty okay, but definitely didn't feel like I had the grades to go straight to university. So I ended up taking like a gap year, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, essentially, if I just kind of wanted to go straight into the workforce. I didn't really have like a plan or what I wanted to do career wise. So after about a year, I decided to just sign up for my local community college, which was Palm Beach State. And when I went, I was talking to the guidance counselor who was helping set me up, and he was basically asking me like, what are my goals? Like, what do I see myself doing? And I really didn't know. And he kind of like pushed me towards this field. He was kind of like, hey, why don't you, computer science? He's like, it's a great field. You'll make good money. And I kind of just like kept that in the back of my head. And I was like, okay, like I'll think about it. So I went there, and I don't know if all community colleges are like this, but basically Palm Beach State essentially was like, if you get your associates with us, they have like a contract with some of the other universities in the state where you can kind of just transfer straight in. So that's essentially how I ended up going to FIU. After I graduated with my associates, I just kind of applied and was automatically accepted, and then that's how I
Wow.
ended getting my
That
bachelor's.
that is awesome. I also want to talk briefly about FIU because FIU, most people don't know, is one of the largest universities in the world. The on-campus population at FIU is in the top five, I think, of enrollment in the country. So it is extremely easy to get lost in the shuffle. So we have a lot of kids that want to go to these big universities, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. I'm wearing my LSU. They like to go. They say they want to go to LSU, and we encourage that because they're all great schools. But when you are at a school as large as a FIU or a large SEC university, how is it that you have to stay from getting lost in the shuffle to where you're not just another number?
um I would say like you just kind of have to stay on top of you know just stay on top of yourself and make sure to reach out. Like, I know that coming from like such a small community college where everyone is kind of so involved, um, to going to FIU was like kind of like a big culture shock, essentially. Like, I know in high school, they would always be like, your teachers are not gonna, be on you to get your homework in. And then when I went to community college, they were on me. So I was like, okay, like it's not that bad, but university, it was definitely like, it was like, oh, you didn't turn it in. I don't really care what you have going on. Zero. Like it was, you kind of just have to like make sure you reach out to your teachers, like kind of just make yourself stand out, ask for help, talk to your classmates, join, groups. Like you kind of have to build that community to kind of like make
Absolutely.
it lost in that, you know, whole system.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And it's all about building a network on top of getting the skills. Now, you got your degree in computer science, and you've recently, in the last few months, moved in to a new position of IAM Administrator, Identity and Access Management. And I know a little bit about this, but I was explaining to the students here. Anytime you log into a website, there has to be a database that has your username and your password, and that database has to be protected. And
Yeah.
it's going to keep growing more and more apps. Every company's got an app now. Every company's got a website. Hospitals, banks, you name it. So talk about this field, and this, how it's kind of different uh, from other tech fields because I know you've enjoyed the software aspect. And this really is for people that enjoy software programming and software engineering. This is a great area of tech that is very, extremely fast growing.
Yes. So IAM, Identity and Access Management, is a very niche part of cybersecurity that I didn't really even know about before I even joined or, got the role beforehand. But essentially, identity and access management is super important in the grand scheme of things because basically you have to be who you say you are or for anything, and this is from, like, let's say for example, we have all these banking apps or software on our phone, and you have to like verify your identity and all types of things. Essentially my job is to make sure you don't have too much access that is not yours, like you
Yeah.
have exactly what you need and nothing more, nothing less, because if someone has access to things that they don't need, it's like, they could do anything. Let's say, you get fired and you're just like, okay, I'm just gonna, delete everything on here. I'm mad. I'm just gonna ruin your life because my life is ruined. Like, my job is to make sure like that never happens, So it's like I have to just make sure I give people exactly what they need. And if they move on or get promoted or demoted, I take away access. So I give access, I take away access. Um, and that's basically the grand scheme of things. There's other things that go into it, like, we do a little bit of like tech support with certain applications and things like that. But yeah, that's basically the grand scheme of
Yeah,
IAM.
and you talk about that, and I used to have a job where we had a shared drive. Everybody in the who worked there had access to this drive, and certain people, sometimes would put something on there by accident, and it was very important. And we had a great IT guy, Dekant Tekrosh. I got to give him a shout out. So we had a great IT guy, and he would do some of that. He would say, "Look, this is only for people with this. This is this isn't relevant to this." So that is kind of what the things now this was 20 years ago. It's obviously way more advanced now. So we hear about cloud storage. So all of that goes into that.
Yeah, for sure. You just basically with IAM, you have to basically protect like sensitive data. Like, that's essentially what cybersecurity is, just making sure that you're protecting data, you're preventing anything from happening that could, be a detriment to the company or whoever you're working for. So yeah.
Now, obviously, we talked about this a little bit, and we've had other cybersecurity guests. We've had all types of IT and tech professionals this year. And one thing I always like to talk about is we have a lot of kids that are interested in computer-based careers, whether it be hardware, software, engineering, programming, you name it. And I know you see it all. But maybe we have some kids that say, "Look, I want to get into this, but I'm not really a college person. I don't really want to, put my financial burden on my family. I don't want to go to school for 4 years." So, what type of entry ways are there into this field if somebody doesn't want to do the traditional college route?
Well, I know that, there's okay, so I went the, college route, and I don't really have certs. I was kind of lucky that my degree was kind of just like enough. It's
Oh wow.
not. it's not really easy. Because I was told like for cybersecurity, they're like, oh, like it's not an easy field to break into. Like you have to have years of, experience. And I kind of was like, oh man, but I still kept applying. I was just kind of like, the worst they could do is say no. So I would apply to every job posting where I felt like I could kind of do it or I could teach myself to do it essentially. But if someone's like, hey, college is not for me, I'm not going to be able to afford it. There's just so many different certifications out there that can kind of give you like a leg up. Before uh I ended up transferring to FIU. I never ended up getting it, but I did study for the CompTIA A plus. And I know people who got their first IT job, just help desk off of that certification.
Oh,
And some people didn't even do the A plus. They did, they jumped straight to Security Plus or whatever they felt would align towards the goals that they wanted to achieve. So basically I would just say have a plan. A lot of people will be like, well, get the degree. I think it's just honestly, if you want something, whether you have a degree or not, make a plan, you know figure out what you need to get there and just work at it. Essentially, when it comes down to it, like I feel like in these interviews, when they're asking you these questions, they just want to know that you know how to do the job, or it'll be easy to teach you how to do the job. The degree or the cert is just kind of like a piece of paper. It's like theory to them, but it's like, can you put what you've learned to the test? Can you put that in action? So yeah, I would say essentially like just kind of do your research, follow people who are doing what you're doing. Cause there's a lot of people that I followed when I was first getting into, this field on Twitter. And none of them, well, not none of them, but like 90% of them did not have a degree or they didn't get a degree in computer science. They were just, like, oh, okay, I want to transition into this field in tech. So I'm going to study for this certification and do projects and this, that, and the third. And then, weeks later, they'd be like, I got my 6-figure role doing this. So it's like, I feel like anything is achievable as long as you have a plan and you study for it and you just kind of like make sure like you keep at it.
yeah. And another thing is the military now has unbelievable cybersecurity training. We have a young man, his brother right now, active duty military in Alaska. These kids, the Air Force, Space Force, Army, all of it has never been a better time to get cybersecurity training. You're going to get state of the art technology training. You're going to get certifications, and you'll get veteran status in an interview, and you'll be looking at making six figures right out of the military. So that is another way, another great way to get into cybersecurity.
Yes, actually, that is another great way because I think even coming from the military, you come out with like a security clearance, and so that puts you in an even better position to get like government roles, like jobs that wouldn't be easily attainable for citizens like myself, who don't have that
Yeah.
clearance. So yeah, for sure the military, just honestly, and there's so many different programs and resources out here. I know down here we have like a workforce program where you kind of just go in and you like apply and they kind of like pay for these like boot camps or programs that a little literally like train you or help you like study for the certifications needed for whatever you're trying to like go into, if that's let's say IT help desk or programming. Like there's programs out there. There's I know New York has like a program for people to get like free Coursera courses. Like all of that, essentially just like take advantage of that. Udemy. I know if you have like a library card, ask them if they have like free, Udemy access or Coursera access. Like the opportunities are out there. You just kind of have to like look.
Yeah, and I know I talk about this all the time, but we have an IT program in our school district. where our students in either 10th or 11th grade can start a 2-year program and graduate high school with IT certifications. And some of them say, look, I don't want to go to college, but I want to work in this field. They've got the certification to get their foot in the door right away. We've actually had people on this channel say out of their own mouths, I'd rather hire a 19-year-old that has a certification than somebody that went to get a degree. And again, we're not discouraging people to go to college because you had a great college experience. There are some great computer science, IT degrees, but if that is something you're on the fence about, this is an area and a field that desperately needs people that are willing to learn and can be taught.
Yeah, I for sure agree. For me, per se, I would say college was essentially like a great place for me to network. But I do want to say like
Absolutely.
majority of the knowledge that you will gain will be from like outside sources. So it's like essentially like the degree is kind of like it's kind of like in a sense gatekeeping. Like they'll put that on the job description, like, oh, you need a bachelor's, but to me, it's not really like you need it for sure. Cause I when I was taking those classes, it's like they didn't really delve deep into like the topics that you had to go outside of your own time. And it's like I learned more from people on the internet than I learned from my classes. Which isn't like bad, but I
Yeah.
don't think it is necessary.
Now, our middle schoolers are spending a lot of time in coding. They've learned multiple languages. And I think it's important to be said. I know they're all into the gaming. When I was their age, I loved the gaming too. It just wasn't near as advanced. We got the games on the apps, we got the games on the gaming systems. But I've come to believe that the next great coding billion-dollar idea is going to come in cybersecurity. So as these young people are learning coding, why should they focus on areas like cybersecurity on these languages they're learning? Because they've got some great teachers around our district, and they're getting a lot of good coding skills at 12, 13, 14 years old.
Well, essentially cybersecurity plays like such an important role in almost every industry. Almost every business relies on technology, especially like where we're headed now with AI. People are they're transitioning to using more so like AI chat boxes, so essentially we're gonna need like sorry, I'm trying to think, but um without like proper like cybersecurity, like a lot of companies will could lose like money, data, like trust. So yeah, like cybersecurity for sure is something that the kids should focus on, in my opinion, because it's like so important, especially if technology keeps advancing the way it is. Like I know a lot of people are like, oh, people are going to lose their jobs to AI, but you're always going to need people to, watch over AI or make sure, like you can't 100% rely on AI at the end of the day. You're always gonna need people to be able to, correct it or make sure fishy happening on the back end of things, so for sure.
Absolutely. Now, before I get to their questions, one last thing I wanted to talk about is there's always a need for diversity in this field. We have a lot of first generation Americans in our district. We're an all black community here at Velma Jackson. We have a ton of young women, young men that may have never seen anybody in their family do anything like this. And look, the types of careers over the last decades have changed. And I always say, just because you haven't seen somebody in your family do it doesn't mean you can't be the first to do it. And just because you're the first to do it doesn't mean you can't be the best at it. So why is there such a need for more young people of all backgrounds and all colors and all genders to get into this field? Because it is desperately needed for diversity.
I feel like we bring like a different perspective, and there's not a lot of us. I will say that. I thought there would be, but it's crazy now. Actually working in the field, and just actually being there, able to bring I know we would be
Hold
able to
on,
bring a different.
I lost you for a second, so I had a little technical difficulty, but I did restart I did restart the recording. But you were talking about just being in the field, seeing that you didn't realize you'd be one of the only ones that looked like you
Yeah,
when you got to the field.
yeah. So I think we bring like a different perspective, essentially, especially my generation because I grew up. So I think like especially now with like AI and what's the word? Like I'm drawing a blank, I'm sorry. But I think essentially, sorry, can you pause? It's like, okay, yes. Okay, so yeah. I think the need for diversity in the field, it'll bring like a different perspective in tech. Also, I feel like it would, especially with AI, it would probably help reduce, I would say bias in a sense. I feel like when teams lack that diversity, um, the products that they put out unintentionally can kind of like, reflect that, bias. Like the other day, I was looking up, what was it? Like it's like this product that's kind of like a home, like a laser thing that you can kind of like do at home. But when I was looking up the reviews, they were saying like it won't work on people of my skin color. And I was like, that's I was like, dang, like that sucks. Like this is such a great product, but I'm like, I can't use it because it would probably end up doing more harm than good to me. But I'm like, dang, if they had someone like who was in the room that was helping build this, product or technology, like, you know, so
Well, I do have some questions from the students. And I like this first one. And Bryson Stevens, he's in ninth grade. Like I mentioned, he's got a brother active duty in the military in Anchorage, Alaska, who's getting into tech in the Air Force. So it's a great way to get into it. And he asked, "What is the hardest part about cybersecurity?"
the hardest part about cybersecurity, I would say, is all the different, I would say the hardest part is making sure that I guess I would say it's making sure that I feel like with sex, with that field, cybersecurity, like every mistake is kind of like you got to be like super careful if that makes sense,
Yeah.
like very detailed because it's like essentially in like a regular job or something you kind of make a mistake and they're like oh it's fine it's cool but you have to make sure like and it's still like if you even click something the wrong way, that could completely just like, ruin like the whole system or, like just completely shut down something for a day. And, once that happens, money gets lost or, you know, something detrimental can happen. So I feel like the hardest part is making sure like you're not like distracted and making sure that you're like super focused because there's days where you're kind of like it's not an exciting job all the time because you're not going to always like people are not hacking into systems like every day like you know you're working on like cybersecurity is like you're like preventing things like that from happening it's kind of like you're preparing in case it does, but we're just kind of like making sure that the opportunity doesn't arise. So essentially you just kind of have to be detailed and just kind of just stay very focused, I would say. So that's like the
Awesome.
hard.
I got time for one more. This is Rashawn Smith. He's a senior, just a few weeks away from graduation. And he
Mhm.
asked, after you got a computer science degree, what was it that made you focus on cybersecurity as opposed to other areas of tech?
Um, well, I will say that when you get the computer science degree, they kind of like that's another reason why I didn't mind going to college is they kind of let you try out a little bit of everything.
Cool.
So I did a little bit of programming, did a little bit of like database analysis, database management, and we learned a little bit about cybersecurity. So essentially, that's just kind of like what I kind of just felt more connected to in a way. I like coding, you know, coding was cool. But at the end of the day, I think I just kind of connected with cybersecurity more. I thought it was like a little bit cooler. I kind of like the idea. There's just so many different paths you can take, you know. It's such a huge field and you can always pivot to something that's super technical or just kind of like not technical. Like it's computer science in itself is a big field and cybersecurity is a field within that field, but even within cybersecurity, it's a huge field. So I just felt like it was just easier for me to kind of like navigate. And even then, I still would be able to use all these different skills that I learned from my degree. Like you
That's
still
awesome.
kind of get to program, you still kind of use your analysis skills, you know? So I felt like cybersecurity was kind of like allowing me to still use like everything that I learned.
That's a great point and a great answer. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us, and we thank you for pivoting when we had the technical difficulties a few weeks ago.
Thank
And
you.
this was a great way to end our school year of guests. But the last thing before we go, you know, you mentioned about all the diversity, not only in the people but in the skills of cybersecurity. So as these kids are getting ready to move into high school or out of high school and then transition to their next steps, and they get more and more technology thrown at them, why should they really consider getting into the cybersecurity field?
I think they should really consider um, getting into the cybersecurity field because, like I said earlier, it's just like technology is just moving so fast, and I feel like this field is growing fast. And there's just so much opportunities. I would say whether that's like financially, you know, just like I feel like you'll be able to just find something that you like to do within that field. So I feel like it's something they should check out at least.
I love it. Well, again, we thank you so much for joining us and fitting this in your schedule, all the way from beautiful Boca Raton, Florida. Our final guest of the school year, Rebecca Florexil, IAM Database Administrator. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you for having me. Have a great day. It was nice coming to talk to you guys.
I talk to you soon, buddy.